Hello. Welcome to the show about stuff, the Stephen Davis Show.
Welcome to a podcast show about stuff. It's the show about stuff, the Stephen Davis Show. Here's your host, Stephen Davis.
Yep, it's time for another marvelous episode of the show about stuff, the Stephen Davis Show. Today, my guest is Bobby Hunter, a basketball legend who played for the legendary Harlem Globetrotters in the late 60s and early 70s. But he has been more than just a basketball legend. He has been a human rights activist who has accomplished much over the years. Welcome, Bobby Hunter. How are you doing?
I feel great. I heard there's going to be a storm here in Florida.
Oh boy, how long you been in Florida?
I heard there's going to be a storm here in Florida.
I thought I had the impression that you were
living
living
I do live in New York. What happened was I turned around and looked, and I saw something that looked like Europe by the water. So I said, well, I think I should stay here. So I called my girlfriend and told him I'm going to be in Florida.
Okay. What part of Florida are you in?
I'll tell you, I'm in Tamarack right now, but I like Boca and I like a place called Margate. Okay. And Florida is very interesting. It can rain today, storm tomorrow, and be sunshiny all week.
And I know that very well. Now, let's get started. Tell me about where you were born and about your parents.
I was born in the old Harlem Hospital, and my parents, one was from South Carolina, and the other one that came from Florida and moved into New York. And we moved to a place called 129th Street, and I lived at 55 West 129th Street. So I had a great time. And then during the summers, I'd go down to Holly Hill, South Carolina, and I'd go pick some cotton.
Oh, wow. Let me tell you something. You are from Holly Hill.
You don't look like, yeah.
Okay.
Holly Hill.
My father was born in Vance.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have all kinds of relatives that live Santee, Holly Hill.
Wow. You got anybody in Utahville?
Yes. A full family.
Wow. Boy, I tell you, David White, my cousin, he was from Holly Hill in Utahville that was in charge of the Panthers in New York. And don't tell any grandmother, she's from Utah.
We had a cousin, Willie White. That was my grandfather's cousin.
Willie White?
Yes.
Yeah. The Whites live right on the other side of the graveyard. Do you know Doris White, or we call her Curley White, is still alive? She's 101 years old, lives in Harlem.
Oh, wow.
Bet you didn't know that.
No, I didn't.
South Carolina, Earl Monroe didn't live too far from there. Neither did Dean Miniger. And if you keep going on, you know, everybody's from South Carolina.
This is so interesting. Dean Miniger was a coach. I used to own part of a basketball team back in the 70s. You remember the New York Stars?
Yeah. Dean was the coach.
I used to own part of the team and do the advertising for them.
And he was a great coach. And also, he was a great clinician. He and Bob Williams had a camp upstate. If you keep talking to somebody, they'll tell you that they're from South Carolina, where sweet potato pie was born.
Yes. Tell me about your childhood. Where did you go to the elementary school at?
PS 68 on 128th 8th Street, and right off of between Lenox and 7th.
For a little while, in the 3rd grade and in the 5th grade, I went to PS 133.
Oh, wow.
My grandmother used to live on 131st Street between 5th and Madison. One set lived there. The other set of grandparents lived on 115th Street. It was the Stephen Foster Projects at the time.
Yeah.
That's where Willie White used to come to hang out, along with a lot of other relatives that was from South Carolina that came to New York along the time that my grandfather and grandmother came up, and they used to party from Friday night till Sunday night. But my grandfather and grandmother always went to work.
My sister-in-law and my niece, they live in Vance. I called them this morning to make sure that the weather wasn't affecting them.
In Vance?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Her name is Augustine Shannon.
Augustine Shannon.
And my niece, she works in Monk's Corner.
I know Monk's Corner also.
I go to Monk's Corner from time to time to do some recreational work.
How was it when you were going to PS 67? Tell me some stories about going to you and going.
It was PS 68, and it was really great because we played stickball and softball outside and basketball, and then we went inside and we would go to the afternoon center, and then we would go to the evening center, and then we had the best dance in Harlem on Wednesday.
Oh, and
it was a great experience. It was a great experience. I was walking there past PS 68, and my mentor, Cecil Watkins, said to me, "Give me 25 cents and I'll teach you how to shoot a jump shot." I told him, I said, "Well, actually, I'm a baseball player. I'm little Jackie Robinson." Cecil introduced me to Holcomb Rucker, and he introduced me to a world of referees, and he introduced me to the courtsmen, and he introduced me to the world. He was most serious as a recreational therapist. And matter of fact, I went back to New York last week because they named a street after him, Cecil Watkins Street in Astoria Boulevard on 95th Street.
Oh, wow.
What a great guy.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that we had back in Harlem at that time. We had great mentors and great recreational directors.
Where did you go to junior high school at?
James Fenimore Cooper, the only hot lunch in Harlem for junior high schools. James Fenimore Cooper.
Guess what?
Yeah.
My father went to James Fenimore Cooper.
Yeah. I hope the gangs didn't chase him like they chased me. I had to cut through Morris Park.
This is so eerie that we know there's intermingling of family there.
In between going to Cooper, I would go over to St. Aloysius because I was Catholic, and they had a great program there with Father O'Brien. And a lot of the kids liked being in the Catholic area for the dances and for religious instruction.
In going to Cooper, what are some of the things that you remember to this day about being part of that? Because Cooper was known as, at least when I went to school, Cooper was known as not being the most friendly of going to school too.
I remember winning the National Junior High School Championship. I remember Leroy Watson taking my knife. I remember the gang chasing me through Mount Morris Park. I accidentally punched one of the gang members after school, and I didn't know the crowd around him was his gang. So I had to run home for 6 months. It built my track ability and my stamina.
I remember taking the long route to go home because two boys was going to get me for trying to talk to their sister.
Oh, well, I understand. They had a lot of gangs in that area, a lot of gangs in that gang. The Sportsmen, oh gosh, it was really, and at that time, being in a gang gave you street cred, and you wore a hat with jewelry on the back.
I'm sitting here in awe because I remember those days.
Yeah.
My father was military, so I didn't spend a whole lot of time in New York because we traveled around the world. But we would always come back to New York, and when he went to places that we couldn't go, that's where we moved back to. So that's when I went to school in New York. Third grade.
I spent a lot of time in art class there. I spent a lot of time in art class in Cooper, and there was a Miss Brown who was an art teacher who really made life really creative, and you saw things in a different manner. And it was a large Puerto Rican section, and then there was a large section of gangs, and then there was a large sections of hustlers, guys who came out of number rider blocks. So it was suit, tie, cap, and Oye Mita. The Schoolboys was at Cooper. That was Frankie Lyman's brother.
You go through Cooper. What high school did you go to?
I went to Seward Park High School down on Delancey Street because I failed the test to go to music and art. And that was really something because all of a sudden I came into a Italian, Jewish, Chinese, Polish section of life. And it was a great experience. And it was really rewarding for me in life to have gone there because it focused a great deal. Some of the experience I had was in Seward Park was just mainly in being with people of another culture and finding out you all really was the same. And that was a very powerful experience, so that when I went and left New York, I did not know what racial prejudice was. I was almost naive.
You were on the basketball team, I naturally assume.
Yes, I was on the basketball team and I was on the track team. Well, we got beat by Clinton at the Garden, which I wasn't very happy about. The year before, we got beat by the Tony Jackson's family at Jefferson. I said, wow, this is something. But I made honorable All-American and I made All-City. And it was a great experience of basketball playing there at Seward Park.
How did basketball affect your academic life and your social life at the school?
The social life was already there coming from 129th Street. The basketball did take it to another level, but I didn't let that bother me. But then all of a sudden, I get an offer from Loyola University. I support a gentleman right now. His name is Russell Schuler, and he has the PSAT, in which he helps young students pass it and get better educated. Because I failed the PSAT test, I got a 63. And instead of going to Loyola, I ended up going to Tennessee State.
Tell me about the cultural differences of leaving the high school that you were at and going to Tennessee State.
Boy, you got me on that one. That was really something. All of a sudden, it was 8-1 girls to guys. And then there was this girl, Wilma Rudolph. I used to race her for a kiss. And later on in life, I asked her, how come you didn't let me win? She said, I tried. Carla Thomas and Wilma Rudolph and I were in the same class. So it was really a great experience, Tennessee, because they were like almost a pro team of basketball there. I was called the N-word walking from the school. I got some rock, and a guy stopped me and he said, I work the FBI and the Ku Klux Klan. He said, you're gonna have to get a grip on yourself because you're down south. I was coming out of the Tennessee Theater and I was sitting downstairs, and Wilma Rudolph came and got me and says, you don't sit downstairs. I said, nobody said nothing to me. She says, well, that's because of the way you look and the way you act. It's best not to sit down here. And matter of fact, one time we were coming from the theater. I didn't take Wilma Rudolph there, but we were walking back from the theater together. And we watched John Lewis getting hit in the head in a little, I guess, prejudice thing that they had where him and some others were in a restaurant. And I said, oh, I see some guys I know. Wilma Rudolph said, no, don't go across the street, Bob. You see them dogs and the police. I said, what do you mean? She said, you don't know how you look crossing, and not in New York. You're down here in Nashville, Tennessee. That's where I learned what prejudice was. But I surely should have known earlier, but I didn't. You know, coming from Harlem, you grow up in a different manner, and you're not with these problems in which other kids have over the nation. And you dress different and you act different.
Did you, during that particular period of time, did that help form any type of attitude that you had going forward in terms of what you wanted to do in life?
Oh, no, it didn't, because accidentally I started studying.
Accidentally?
Yeah, it was an accident. The world opened up in the study of dramatic tribes, the study of culture, agriculture, the study of art. You can't have any prejudice when you're doing art. It opens the world to you. I come out of the house and the whole world's open to me, and it has never changed.
You didn't carry any of the scars of those experiences throughout your life?
No, and no scar was really that deep for me.
It had to do more with your own personality?
I would say it was a personality, and maybe I added to it. I was at the Senate, and they asked me about Rucker Park, and I said Rucker was a great mentor, and he had a certain voice, and also he had a method of teaching. And when you hear his voice go into your ears, you're not offended. And that's what he did for me, Rucker. He sent me out in the world in that manner. So I always wanted to be Rucker and go to basketball clinics, teaching class, and the same formula. So at the Congress, when we were talking about a Rucker Park monument for Holcomb Rucker, I guess you could say I went from Rucker Park to Stanford University.
That's a great analogy. It's a great analogy. But for my audience, I want you to do me a favor, because you mentioned her several times. Tell the folks who Wilma Rudolph was.
Ooh, she was the most attractive, beautiful woman you ever wanted to see from Memphis, Tennessee. Actually, I think she was from so close to Memphis. And one time she took us to Beale Street in Memphis, and we saw all the jazz people right there on one block. And we went into this radio station, whatever it was, and boy, I saw everybody and heard everything. She, in 1960, won 4 gold medals. 4 gold medals. She was the most outstanding track person you ever wanted to meet. She just happened to be very beautiful. And then they came on campus together, Muhammad Ali and Wilma Rudolph. Everyone was in love with her.
I did get a chance to meet and become friends with Wilma. That was exciting. Really? Yes. Actually, I called her up and we became friends from that.
Oh, okay.
So we would talk to each other from time to time.
What did you call Wilma?
Excuse me?
What nickname did you call her?
I didn't call her any nickname. I just knew her by Wilma. That's all.
Oh, okay.
That
I call her Skeeter or Skeets.
Oh, Skeets. Well, I wasn't as close of a friend.
You know what? I just said it earlier. We keep going around and things so close. And I said, it'll probably keep going on. Wilma and I had great conversation later on in life. And she had a great attitude. I met her 2 daughters in New York when she was being honored by the Historical Association. She was something else. And so was Carl Thomas. in our class. I think she left and transferred somewhere to Alabama.
Vivian
She was
Brown.
another track star. She was and Wilma were close friends.
Ah, such a long time ago, huh? Such great memories.
That was 1960. You really didn't have to say that. Such a long time.
I was talking about me having talked with her. It was a long time ago.
Oh.
Oh, um, tell me about your record at Tennessee State. Well, how did the basketball team do?
We could not do anything because the team before with Dick Barnett and Barnhill and Rossi Johnson and Porter Merriweather, they had won 4 straight divisions, and they were the most highly ranked team, and they would not let them play in NIT. So we were following some giants, and giant following is awful rough.
It is. It is.
To give you a real picture, it was like somebody following, Air Jordan. That's Dick Barnett and them. They did something. Although there was a guy that came to that school, Cleo Hill. He danced pretty good. Cleo Hill was from Winston-Salem, and Earl Monroe more or less took over after Cleo Hill. But Cleo Hill danced on us. Yeah.
So you had a interesting but not a championship season.
Right. Yeah. Those guys were super players. They were just truly great. And it was about 10 of them. And all 5, the first 5 and the first 7 went to NBA and ABA teams.
Now, as you're approaching leaving Tennessee State, was your mind on the next step for you was being in an NBA?
Yeah. I didn't get drafted, so then I ended up going to the Knickerbocker camp. And they said, we have a lot of guards, because I play guard and forward. And so they went to Wilmington, Delaware. I used to ride down there with Freddie Crawford and Tom Hoover and Jerry Dixon and Al Ennis. And Neil Johnson was the coach. And they said, you're not going to do good here because you're too tricky for him. He's just a straight up person. And I wish I would have known that, because then I would have altered my game. But it was kind of hard because I could do an awful lot. And then sometimes playing center and sometimes playing shooting guard, I think I was able to do too many things.
So you were too good for your own good, huh?
Yeah, great at a lot of things, but not good at one. What happened was they told me to leave the team. I was asking about coming back to next year's camp. Donovan, the coach at the time, liked me, but Abe Saperstein came and said, how much are they going to give you? I said, well, $8,000. That's what Elgin Baylor told me. He said, I'll give you 16. I said, what? He said, I'll give you 16. So I said, well, let me think about it. So I waited a whole 6 months. Then I said, yeah, okay. So that's how I got to the Globetrotters.
That's how you got to the Globetrotters. Was Nate Bowman on the Knicks team at that time?
He came the year after, but Nate Bowman was on my team in the
Well, my family, on my mother's side, her grandmother was a Bowman.
Oh, hey, he was a nice guy. We partied, and him and Emmett Bryant. We had a clinicianal camp. We did one in Jersey, one in New York, one in the Bronx, and we might do 2 or 3 in one day. And Emmett had a relationship with Ballantine Beer because he had just finished winning the championship with the Celtics. So Freddie Crawford, Dave Stallworth, Nate Bowman, Bobby Hunter, and the left-handed guy that played for the Knicks. Oh, God. What's wrong with my memory? Oh, God. We all would go to various park departments and put on a camp.
I remember Nate so much because used to hang out at Under the Stairs on Columbus Avenue in the 70s. That's where he used to hang out at. I lived on 92nd Street, and I think he lived in the area. So a lot of folks used to hang out at under the stairs.
Yeah, they had great music and then they had great Latin.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
And then Sellers was around the corner.
Right.
Yeah. Again, I say it was a long time. I won't put you into it, but for me, it was a
Yeah.
long time
Yeah.
ago. Now you joined the Harlem Globetrotters. Tell me, on that first game that you had with the Harlem Globetrotters, how did you feel coming out onto the court?
Playing with the Harlem Globetrotters was just another day at the Rucker.
Okay, but it still was your hello, 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 hello.
And then there were only a few people that had a certain style that their game didn't change, whether they were playing a comedy style or they were playing for real. And one of them was Pablo Robertson, and the other was Bobby Hunter, and the other was Connie Hawkins. I was Bobby Joe Mason.
Still, my question was on that first game, it's like a performer going on stage for the first time, and you're looking into the lights and you're trying to remember that you can remember your lines and you don't want to do anything wrong.
No, that never came to be. It was just another day at the Ruck. It's not difficult to say, but you did say it earlier. You think that you're too good. And that was my attitude. I was ambidextrous. I shot with the left and the right hand and never got tired because I ran track. And I could shoot a turnaround jump shot in mid.
But who were some of your other teammates aside from Connie Hawkins and the other one that you named?
Bobby Joe Mason and Curley Neal were exceptional players, and people didn't know it because they were looking at Meadowlark or they were looking at me or Connie and didn't see what those two had. They were really something. One year we played in the Roman Coliseum. Connie Hawkins, Wilt Chamberlain, Meadowlark Lemon, Bobby Joe Mason, and Curley Neal. I got 41 points. Wilt Chamberlain stole my girl. That's not funny. That's not funny. And plus I paid for lunch.
It is. I'm sorry. Yes, it is.
He was a different person when he come play with the Globetrotters. I mean, he was just a different person. It seemed like it was like a day off from life.
How hard was it to trend from being in college where you were on the team and you didn't get paid, at least not up front, but you were more going in terms of grades and stuff like that and hope to get in an NBA, and the pressures that it came upon you when you were being paid?
I came from a block of hustlers, and I wore a Italian shirt with Italian tie and a handkerchief in my pocket. The sleeves were just an inch over the jacket, and my cuffs were just above the shoes, and I was wearing Stetsons. And then I had on a tremendous sky or hat with a diamond shape. So I was into making money.
But I'm more talking about, yeah, you made money, but the pressures of, and I'm sure that there's a slight difference in terms of you being in the Harlem Globetrotters as opposed to being on an NBA team where the record in terms of making the playoffs was the most all important thing.
Yeah, I think I understand the question, but for some 8-9 years, I played in front of sellout crowds. So it was a championship every game with the Globe.
Then that's even more so. For instance, today here, they just fired the Jets coach because he didn't win. And that's the pressures of being in particularly professional sports. The goal is to win. The goal is to win it all. But I guess there wasn't as much pressure in.
Interesting. Next year, I'm going to have the Global Globetrotter Awards, where I'll be telling the story of how the Globetrotters beat the Lakers and also how they beat the Celtics. So these stories are not told.
And how long were you with the Harlem Globetrotters?
I was there actually 9 years, but what happened was I became union president because I didn't like people not being paid that were playing that hard. And as the management, we're paying, she said, we don't understand. We're paying you. Why are you doing this? I said, because you're not paying the other people. And then the other is we're going to white communities teaching and passing on a certain amount of love, and we're not doing it in Black communities. So I said, I can't have that because I'm part of the Each One Teach One program in Harlem. People were wondering, why did you become president? Because I had no fear. Yeah, lack of fear, slightly naive.
So actually, you led into the part that I was going to ask you about post basketball. What are some of the things that you have done and that you are doing when you left basketball?
When I left basketball, I didn't leave basketball. I went to LIU and finished up a little further in my degree and got a master's. And then I went to work for Uniroyal. And then I went to Boston College as an academic advisor and a coach. Then I went to Stanford University, where I further studied Germanic tribes and etc. And in one of my classes was John Elway was in one of my classes. What happened after? We started Harlem Week 50 years ago to show communities how to strengthen your community. I worked with David White in the community program that brought houses back to people in Harlem. My father said, if you see a good fight, join it. Go sit by the pool, do my artwork. I'm one of the top fusion artists in America, ambassador for the National Union of Peace at the UN. I'm the ambassador for FOPOW. FOPOW is we ring the bell of peace all over the country. The Pope has rang the bell. The Queen rang the bell. Various presidents all over rang the bell. We're constantly saying, let's have love and peace throughout this world. I'm the ambassador for the World Conference of Mayors run by the Honorable Johnny Ford. We recently had an event in Harlem where we honored Charlie Rangel. Tiny Archibald came and was honored, where the bell was rung by Boza River. So those are some of the things I can't get past. Being chairman for the United Churches, it's my job to make sure to have the churches in the North warmer and the churches in the South cooler. If we're not together, then we are going to suffer a terrible, terrible fate. I spoke very briefly at the UN last week, and it wasn't a speech. Everyone was saying, well, what do you think of love and what should we do? I said, look, here's my thing. Forgive thy neighbor. Honor thy neighbor. Pass on love and peace. Be together, because together we can win. And last but least, the ox is slow, but the earth is patient.
Well, that's a wonderful philosophy, a wonderful life that you have led and that you are leading. And I commend you so much for it. That's it, the show about stuff, the Stephen Davis Show. Thank you for being part of this broadcast.
Thank you for tuning in this week. Hope you enjoyed this show about stuff. See you next time.